Chapter 37. Spill the Tea. Red snapped away at an ear-splitting clang less than a foot from her head. A soldier guard was rapping his staff against the bars of the cell. All three teenagers had fallen asleep. Ace and Chester were looking around blearily, equally disoriented by the noise. With no daylight, Red had no sense of the time. It felt like they'd been in the dungeons for weeks, though it couldn't have been more than a few hours. "We're up," Red snarled, covering her ears. The guard stopped and set the end of his staff into the stone. "I'm the princess here, you know." The soldier unlocked the door of the cell and swung it open. Red looked at the boys, her heart suddenly in her throat. Chester's eyes were wary as he met her gaze. Whatever was in store for them, it couldn't be good. What's this?" Red asked. "Where are you taking us?" The soldier guard spoke a single word in a deep monotone. "Upstairs." It didn't sound good, but anything was better than being in the dungeons. In single file, Red, Ace, and Chester trudged out of the cell. Another guard walked alongside them. Their arms and legs weren't chained, but there was certainly no chance for escape. As they moved up the long stairs together, Red felt Ace brush her shoulder and squeeze her hand. Red wished there was something she could say, that despite her mother's warnings, he and Chester were her two best friends in the world, that she hadn't known what friendship was before they came into her life, that the two of them had made her believe she could do anything, even make another Wonderland possible, and that she was so scared she let them both down. But the guards hushed them at any noise. Red didn't trust herself to get the words out anyway. Red blinked as they came out of the dungeons. Bright light was streaming through the high castle windows and splashing onto the floor. It was late morning, which Red would never have guessed. Night and day were all the same in the unchanging light below ground. She felt like she was coming out of a cave. When they reached the grand hall, Red had the urge to run, as if they sensed it. The guards moved closer, and more appeared on either side. Sweat broke out along her neck, on her palm. What would be behind the double doors? But when the soldier guards pushed open the doors, the room was empty. "What is going on?" Red demanded to know. At the question, the soldier to her left grabbed her arm and yanked her one way, while his companions pulled Ace and Chester the other. "Red," Chester said, his voice tinged with fear. "What?" Red cried. "No, wherever you're taking them, you have to take me too." The soldier had her by both arms now. He was leading her to the stairs at one end of the grand hall, and Chester and Ace were going toward the other. "Don't you dare!" Red shouted, struggling against the cold metal grip. "Chester, run if you can! Ace! Red!" Ace cried before the soldier guard restraining him covered his mouth with an iron glove. Then they were gone. In a blink of an eye, her friends been dragged from the room, and Red was ascending with the soldier again. "Explain this to me now," she wailed. The image of Ace's and Chester's terrified faces stayed imprinted on her mind like a flashlight. But the guard hauled her silently to the top of the stairs and passed her way to a group of noblewomen Red didn't recognize. They seized her, clamping onto her arms with their claw-like hands and tearing at her clothes and hair. "Stop!" Red screamed. "What are you doing?" Something was tied around her waist. A woman patted her face with powder. Another yanked her hair away from her forehead. Red fought them at every turn, but they were somehow stronger and even more determined. They worked in grim silence, sharp eyes glaring disapprovingly at Red. Then someone shoved her forward through another door. Blazing sun, blinding light against Red's weakening eyes. She was on the terrace, on the second floor of the castle, the one overlooking the gardens. Before her was a table with two chairs, elaborately set with pristine fine china and laden with delicate finger foods and treats. Red took a shaky breath and a step forward. Over the terrace railing she could see dozens and dozens of neat round tables set in the garden, where hundreds of Wonderland's finest nobility and members of the court sat. They were dressed to the hilt and stared each of them up at the terrace in anticipation. A movement to Red's left made her flinch. The Queen of Hearts stepped out of the shadows and into the sunlight, eyeing Red with an icy, level expression. She took a seat at the table and nodded to Red, lifting a fine china cup. The annual Wonderland tea ceremony was about to begin.